A crow stares at a clear acrylic box. Inside is food it cannot reach with its beak. No one taught it how to solve this. No one showed it an example. And yet, in under a minute, it bends a piece of wire with its beak, fashions a hook, and pulls the reward out from the bottom of the tube. No one taught it that. It invented it. Over several months, I tested the intelligence of 10 different bird species: parrots, crows, pigeons, magpies, jays, cockatoos. I wanted to answer a question that sounds simple, but has quietly unsettled science for decades. How close is the mind of a bird to our own? The result, honestly, was uncomfortable. Uncomfortable because it forces us to reconsider what the word thinking even means. Let's start at the beginning. For centuries, bird brain was shorthand for stupidity. A tiny brain, folded into a skull the size of a walnut, surely couldn't hold much. That was the assumption for generations. But assumptions, in science, have a habit of collapsing. The first bird I tested was a New Caledonian crow. I gave it an 8-step problem. Use a short stone to reach a medium stick, use that stick to reach a longer one, and use that longer stick to finally extract food from a sealed box. It's the kind of sequence we'd use to test 5- or 6-year-old children. The crow solved it with no prior trial. Researchers at Oxford University have documented behaviors like this for years. These birds don't just use tools, they manufacture them, adapt them to the shape of the problem, and in some cases, save them for later. Save them for later. That implies something that until recently seemed exclusively human, planning for a future that doesn't yet exist. That's where the first big question appeared.
If a crow can anticipate a future need, what else can it anticipate? The second bird was a magpie. I showed it a mirror. Most animals react to a mirror as though it were another individual. They growl at it, ignore it, avoid it. But when I placed a small colored mark under its beak, invisible without a reflection, the magpie did something extraordinary. It moved its claw directly toward the mark on its own body, guided entirely by the mirror image. It recognized itself. That behavior, known as the mark test, is passed by only a handful of species on the entire planet: great apes, dolphins, elephants, and now some birds. Not even every dog manages it. If mysteries like this fascinate you, this is only the beginning. Every week we explore another hidden chapter in the extraordinary lives of birds. So if you want to follow along, subscribing means you won't miss what comes next. Because what I found afterward completely changed how I see the birds in my own backyard. The third species was an African gray parrot. For 30 years, researcher Irene Pepperberg worked with a parrot named Alex. She didn't teach him to repeat words at random. She taught him categories: color, shape, material, quantity. And Alex answered brand new questions, ones he'd never heard before, with an accuracy that hovered around 80%. He answered correctly even when that exact combination had never been presented before. That isn't memorization. That's understanding abstract concepts.
Whether there's someone in there feeling the world, or whether it's an extraordinarily sophisticated architecture operating without awareness, that question, honestly, no one can answer yet, not even for most mammals. The fourth and fifth birds were two pigeons, animals we usually ignore in any city square. I trained them to tell Monet paintings apart from Picasso paintings. They learned. Then I showed them paintings by the same artists that they'd never seen before, and they kept classifying correctly. Pigeons, on top of that, can count up to 9 and order quantities in sequence, a skill that rivals some primates. The sixth was a jay. Here, the science takes an almost unsettling turn. Researcher Nicola Clayton at Cambridge discovered that jays don't just hide food for later. If they notice another jay watching them hide it, they later return, alone, and move it to a new spot. They only do this if they themselves have stolen food hidden by others before. In other words, they seem to know that if they have stolen, others might too. That's something close to putting yourself in another's position. It's potentially an early form of what psychology calls theory of mind. The seventh was a common crow. In a social behavior experiment, it recognized specific human faces. Scientists at the University of Washington disguised researchers in masks to trap and band crows. Years later, without the event repeating, the crows still reacted with alarm specifically to that one mask, and even taught that reaction to chicks.
The eighth, a chickadee,
revealed another capacity that's almost impossible to imagine at human scale. It hides thousands of seeds in different locations throughout the fall, and months later, in the dead of winter, remembers the exact location of most of them. Its hippocampus, the brain region tied to spatial memory, literally grows in size during caching season. The ninth, a hummingbird, remembered not just which flowers it had visited, but how long each one needed to regenerate its nectar, visiting hundreds of flowers a day without revisiting any too soon. And the 10th, a cockatoo named Figaro in Austria, spontaneously solved a 5-step lock to escape its enclosure with no prior training. He later taught the technique to other cockatoos simply by watching them fail. Here's the revelation that, for me, changed everything. For decades, we assumed a small brain meant few neurons. In 2016, neuroscientist Susanna Herculano-Huzel showed that bird brains, despite their size, pack twice the neuronal density of mammal brains in the same volume. A parrot or a crow can hold as many neurons in the pallium, the region tied to complex thought, as a considerably larger monkey. It isn't a small brain with less capacity. It's a compressed, efficient brain built on entirely different rules than ours. And that's where the real mystery lies. Our lineage and the lineage of birds split more than 300 million years ago. Mammals developed intelligence through the cerebral cortex. Birds, direct descendants of theropod dinosaurs, developed it through a completely different evolutionary path with no cortex at all, using their own neural architecture.
Two separate lineages, 300 million years apart, arrived at strikingly similar results: complex memory, planning, facial recognition, tool use, possibly self-awareness. That's called convergent evolution, and it suggests something deeply unsettling: that intelligence may not be some exclusive accident of our branch of the evolutionary tree, but a solution evolution can find again and again through completely different paths. Personally, there's something about this that still leaves me speechless. The next time a crow stares at you from a power line, or a pigeon tilts its head to watch you cross the street, it's possible that behind that tiny eye is a mind capable of remembering your face, anticipating your routine, and solving problems that would take us years to teach. What we still don't know, what remains, honestly, an open mystery, is whether those minds experience the world in any way similar to how we do, whether they feel curiosity the way we feel it. Maybe the most important discovery isn't what we already know about birds. Maybe it's how much we still don't. And if this already sounds extraordinary, wait until you hear what happens when a group of crows gathers in silence around one of their own that has died. Because that behavior, documented in different parts of the world, raises a question no study has managed to answer yet. Can birds, in some way, understand death?